4:30 somewhere. Okay, first of all the members of the council are here with the exception of Tim Curtin and Gary Sieber. Tim had some work conflict today, and Gary's somewhere between here and Florida. Hating life because he's got to come back to the cold. That's the town manager update.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first thing that I wanted to talk about is the budget update. Town staff this week participated in a 4-hour workshop. What we were doing at that time is reviewing the revenue projections, taking into account some of the perceived or proposed cuts that may be coming down the pipe. The CFO is now working with those numbers to provide a total revenue projection number to me before I proceed. She's also creating new templates. If you recall in an email I shared some time ago, that I attached a copy there that the auditor talked about. One of the things we will have to do with the utility fund is separate the water and sewer so the auditor can actually report those as two separate funds in total, as opposed to a total utility fund. That also means the assets and connection fees, we'll have to break those out by category for each one. I attached a listing, and I emailed this about 2 weeks ago, I think, on audit prep on that topic. I attached a listing of the action items that must be accomplished by town staff for the current audit year beginning June 30th. And these items are in addition to the normal annual preparation we would do for the audit. I think of this as the exercise we as individuals or households perform just before annual income tax time. It's just not about finding the paperwork, it's what you did all year that's going to decide whether you pay a lot or you get a refund type of thing. The auditors are asking us to do some additional prep work in a 2-page document that basically will help them to be able to make the audit do what USDA rural development wants it to do in terms of the reporting. I would like to bring a pretty comprehensive budget amendment to the Town Council for adoption in March. I want to, and I will share with you through emails and such between now and then, the items to be included. One item is that $1,000 grant we talked about earlier for the fire department. Addition of monies received from surplus goods through gov deals or scrap metal that we sold. Funding associated with the 2013 application for the downtown revitalization grant. Earlier this year, I asked the council for approval to execute the contract for Lens Studio. That was, I believe, $12,900, but a funding source had not been identified. And so we need to identify a funding source to fund that. One of the things I also wanted to ask the council about, there was an outstanding $39,000 that was due from, it would have been from fund balance for the schools. Is that something that the council wants to make a determination on? Is that something we want to use to fund that, and maybe the consultants? If you would let me know that prior, then I will be delighted to do the adjustments to.
Yeah, is this left over what we told them they could take back?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And that could fund the contract for the Lens Studio, and could also help with the funding for the consultants, if that's something the council would like us to go through with. On the old police building, I reviewed the January meeting notes, and I've attached a page there for you, and I highlighted the page. Mayor Hamden recommended that we hold a public hearing and consider negotiating a price. At this time, I would like to ask the council to instruct staff on the direction you would like us to take on that. We each got a copy of the appraisal, and I advised the agent of the appraisal, and he asked, what will the council like to do? And I went back to the meeting notes, and I said, based on the meeting notes, it's not sure, but the mayor had made this recommendation, so I would like you to talk to me and let me know if this is something you would like us to advertise for a public hearing, or is this something you want to discuss later in the meeting?
Yeah, we'll discuss it.
Okay. Okay. The erosion and sediment control update. When I prepared this earlier this morning, later in the daytime, I became aware of a letter from the Department of Conservation and Recreation regarding the erosion and sediment control mandate. Let me back up. What happened about a month ago, I visited with Mr. Fink in the county, the planner, at Mr. Rizzavi's request, and talked about providing services for us, and it was my understanding on a temporary basis until we could go to the new budget year. That was acceptable to them because they could not provide that service for us on a permanent basis based on additional mandates that we know are coming down the pipe. Mr. Fink recommended that he sent to us and recommended that we use the template that they use for their memorandum of understanding with Montrose, and to build a template around this work. So Aaron Mitchell worked on a draft template, is at the very, on a draft MOU using their template, is at the very back of that page. And I wanted to have the council take a look at this, provide input, review it, and discuss it, tell us where to go. However, since then, and I will let Mr. Mitchell speak to the other point, we got a letter today from the Department of Conservation and Recreation voicing some concern over the fact that we're still not compliant.
The letter or the report that Ms. Foles is referencing is the annual report that DCR gives to their board of directors. And in that report, which they meet, I want to say the 27th of March, somewhere about that date, that report says that while the town has adopted an EMS ordinance, it still has no way to run the ordinance in terms of either personnel or an agreement with Westmoreland at this point. So therefore, we're still considered somewhat non-compliant. So when you read that report, the last sentence of that report, I believe Ms. Foles had sent that to you electronically today. The statement, so I had a question based on that statement, because it says basically that the town cannot issue permits for land disturbing activities until either the town becomes compliant with our own person or with Westmoreland County taking over the program administration. So I asked Flint Lassiter, our contact there, to tell me exactly what that means. Does that mean I can't issue any building permits, zoning permits, or whatever? Her response to me as of like 3:53 this afternoon, I got this on the email, and I forwarded it to Val, says the town may issue land disturbance permits, and that's building permits, grading permits, land disturbance permits. She has a quote, a section of state laws, 10.1565. The town may issue land disturbance permits as long as the applicant submits an erosion and sediment control plan approved by Westmoreland County. Now, if we don't have Westmoreland County on board to approve it, and we don't have someone here to approve it and run the program, I mean, she didn't really answer my question. I said, can we issue that? She said, well, you can issue it if you have someone to run the program. We don't have anyone to run the program yet. And we don't have anyone, we don't have an agreement with Westmoreland yet. So I'm still have a clarification question. She's talking to John McCutcheon, who is like the director or second in command at DCR, to give a clarification. Because the way her answer is, you could say, well, if you don't have someone to run the program and Westmoreland has not agreed to do it yet, I can't issue a permit.
The question,
So that's the question, is how they, what exactly does she mean by that? I'm still unclear from her.
yeah, and the question that I have, and it's probably answered in one of those emails I didn't read this evening, is whether they are expecting Westmoreland County to administer our ENS ordinance that we adopted, or and that's clarification that I need
From DCR.
You need clarification from BCR or from the town attorney?
No, from Department of Conservation and Recreation, whether we can, Westmoreland will be expected, if they agree to do this, to administer our town ordinance or the Westmoreland County's ordinance.
I know I'm acting a little thick
It's
here, but
okay.
explain to me, Gary, you have set up the template for what we could use with Westmoreland County, correct?
Correct, it's on the back.
And it's my understanding that the gentleman we have in place now, Mr. Monroe, is not qualified to do, by his own admission,
Right.
not to do erosion and sediment.
Right.
And we are still in the process of trying to hire someone to fill that position, so this would be a stopgap measure.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to.
Do we have some, I'm sorry.
Are we actually advertising for that position? Because I didn't think we were yet.
We had advertised the position and we had interviewed, but because it was not funded, I spoke with the mayor and one or two other council members before I go out and fill a position that's not funded, that's not legal. And at that time, they asked me to hold off because they were hoping that Westmoreland would pick it up for us.
So the answer to that is that we are not currently advertising for that position, is that right?
No, ma'am. We've advertised and interviewed several people and found at least 2 people who we would think would be qualified for that
Recently or
position.
previous, when we were the mayor?
January, in January.
It's my understanding you have somebody, 1 or 2 candidates willing to step in place
That is correct.
if there's money there to fund.
That is correct.
So that would have to take place in the next budget.
That is correct.
So
That is
we
correct. I can tell you one person has since found another position, so.
Okay, but we do have somebody that could step up. So what you need from us is to get this Westmoreland County agreement approved.
Correct, correct. If the town council, and I don't expect you to read it now, would take a good look at it for us and make us know something in the next few days, edit, whatever. And then once this town council passes it, then I get it to the board of supervisors.
Is this going to take a vote from the town council or a verbal approval?
Correct.
Then will it have to be advertised?
No.
Okay.
Gary, let me ask you, you talk about Westmoreland County being on board. If they don't want their inspector to inspect us in the town of Colonial Beach, then we're behind the 8 ball, so to speak. We've got to hurry up and get somebody on board. Is that true?
Yes, sir.
And it wouldn't be that they don't want to.
Well, I'm
Their
saying if they say
resources-
they're too busy.
Right.
Would it be good, if you will, for the council to put in a budget amendment so that this person could come on and do away with the agreement with the county?
And that would be council's decision. It
Well,
certainly
I'm
would
looking
be.
for a recommendation from you and Gary.
The problem we've got here, and this has gone on for a long time, that Westmoreland County wants to say, well, we're not responsible for anything in Colonial Beach. We pay a lot of property taxes to Westmoreland County. I go down and I talk to 1 or 2 of the supervisors, they're like, sure, we should be helping y'all more. And then we turn back around, and they say, well, we won't do it. Now, if they agree to do it, they would be within their right to do it based on their erosion soil disturbance plan. I doubt it's going to be much different than what ours is anyway. But I think we need to get back with Norm and say, you know, what are we getting in Colonial Beach for the tax money we're paying? You know, we run our own school system, we've got our own police department. And, you know, what is Westmoreland County doing? And we need to get them more on board with, they do still maintain that this is part of Westmoreland County.
My experience in the past, and I've shared this, I think, with Ms. Goforth and Mr. Chiarella last week, has been good. Dexter Monroe, for example, when we did not have a building inspector, we lost our last building inspector, and the economy was tanking. The county helped us out. I think Mr. Rizalvi said 6 months, he promised me, but it went for about a year. And in the end, when we could not find through advertising somebody qualified to take that job part-time, he helped talk Mr. Monroe into joining us on a part-time basis. So,
And that's good, and I agree, I respect your opinion, Mr. Mayor, that we should rely on the county, but that is only a stopgap measure. So what is your recommendation, Gary?
I mean, you know, as Val said, it's a decision that,
it's a money matter.
It's a money matter,
Yeah.
so unless we do a budget amendment, our hands are tied until the next budget comes out, is that
Unless
correct?
we find the money, we can't do an
Exactly.
amendment if we don't have money.
That's what I'm saying, if we don't have the money, then our hands are tied till our next budget and we find the money. It looks to me like we have to find the money.
Well, I agree with the mayor. They've agreed to do it. Maybe not forever, but for some amount of time.
What they have told us is use this template. Let's put it in writing so it's official. Have the town council agree to the terms. I'll send it down. They'll take it to the Board of Supervisors, have the supervisor hopefully concur, and then they will go ahead, as opposed to one of these.
Couple questions.
Sure.
If you compare our template to Westmoreland's, what's the difference? Is there anything significant?
The erosion and sediment control ordinance, I have not compared them.
the main things in terms of the difference in the ordinance is that our impermeable surface ratio is 36%, and the county's is 16%. So the amount of area that you can cover on your lot with an impermeable surface is basically double in town. And that's before you do an engineered plan and go through a whole lot of experiments. So that's the biggest difference.
Is there any way we can incorporate that into Westmoreland's?
So we can't,
We can't set a condition in there that's, because that would be something that, because Colonial Beach is where Colonial Beach is, and what we have in our template, where we adjust our template.
and so we can't, we could go down, but we can't go up. But if you go down, it's gonna cause, because we have a small lot, 16% is, 36% actually on a 5,000 square foot is a lot of space you cover.
I would think that we could work out with the memorandum of understanding, which is the template we're talking about. The other thing is an actual erosion and soil control
Ordinance.
plan. But, I mean, surely the guy can figure out the difference between 16% and 35% or whatever. And we can work out a deal with Westmoreland County that when they do one for Colonial Beach, we'd like for them to use 35%, 36%.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's not
That's
that
the
hard to
major
refigure.
Yeah, I said that's the major difference.
How long are they going to do this, have they said? They just said temporarily?
In the meeting that Gary and I had with Mr. Fink, because there are additional stormwater regs coming at them, they said it's not something we can take on permanently. If this is through your next fiscal year, we'll be happy to do it on a temporary basis. So.
So we can do it now and see where the budget comes in. We're gonna get hit this year. I mean, everybody read the papers, Superintendent Bean will tell you, they're $400,000 short of the federal $800,000 in state cuts they're taking. And they're looking for the town to come up with $400,000 more for the school. We're gonna have to work closely with the board and say, we can't create money.
I hear you, sir.
But if the agreement with Westmoreland, if we can get that to get us in through the end of June, and then figure out what do we really have in the budget for the coming year, ask Mr. Rosavi if they will, during this period that they're helping us, if they will use our percentages for things like the impervious cover can't see any reason why they wouldn't.
Yeah, I absolutely, will work with the administrator on anything that the town council asks me to. I don't have a problem with that. I just wanted to put it out there and wanted you to know everything that we knew up to this time.
I have one more question for you, Phil. Has the county told us what charges, or if they're gonna charge? What is the memorandum of understanding stated?
In the memorandum of understanding, which we took from them, in the discussion that we had, it was clear that they would expect to collect the fees, whatever the application fees are for this. In the memorandum of understanding, I added one line for the county shall bill the town monthly in amount not to exceed, and I left it blank, for any travel and staff time in excess of so many hours. And I was looking for among us to find a number of hours that would be reasonable, if anything in excess of that. And the reason I put that in, I know, for example, on our end, and I get the complaints where Ms. Goforth is planting a tomato tree, but it really isn't a tomato tree. She's digging up 2,500 square feet. Come out and look at it. And that person will have to leave Kinsale or wherever they are, if they're on a site, and to come out and to be responsive and to look at that, and then do a report. And there would be a way that we could track this. We could come up with some kind of system.
Have they asked for that, or are you volunteering that? Because, and I'll tell you why I ask. I agree with the mayor. We are part of Westmoreland County, and they don't charge that if they're coming to Oak Grove, I assume, or if they're going, almost to us, because that's Westmoreland County. We're Westmoreland County also.
I understand.
And I think, that we need to try to get all the services that we possibly can get from Westmoreland County.
I agree. In this one, Ms. Goforth, I was a little bit nervous, and I wanted it to happen quickly, because there is a fine which involves to the town. If DCR decides to fine us, this will be nothing. So I really wanted, and I left it blank, and if the town council wants me to take it out completely, I wanted to sweeten the pot and make it attractive, because it's something I really wanted us to do. And if building starts an uptick, I want us to be able to deliver to our citizens. I was only thinking of it from our perspective.
And of course, the other part of it that I've spoke to you about is, do we have anyone that could cross-train, that could be trained, so that when we do take this upon ourselves, if we do, that we save some money in combining a position, because it really is going to be hard times.
Councilwoman Goforth, I think I have an answer for that. Mr. Edwards and I met extensively with the planning office, and this erosion person is planning to cover some technical issues. I want to say the GPS system, but I don't think that's it. GPS.
It's GIS,
GIS.
it's floodplain management, it's Chesapeake Bay ordinance.
Right.
It's an ENS, and it's a stormwater mandate that we're going to get hit with in July, effective January 1st of 2014.
And one of the people that they're looking at for this full-time position would be able to serve in that technical capacity. So they would be used just for that and erosion.
He'd be a Josh Jr., kind of in a way.
So he's covering Josh's job in
He would
addition
come
to.
in and,
Is that what-
No,
well, not all, no.
No, okay,
But
no.
some.
Just portions of what Josh
Right.
is doing.
The
Exactly.
technical portion of what, but not the receptionist type,
Right.
zoning type thing that Josh did.
So Josh.
So are we still looking for two positions or
Yes.
one?
Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely.
All right, that's what I want clear.
We need, well, on that line of an employee, along with this meeting here, Dexter Monroe, as we know, has been a valiant employee of ours that's really been doing a great job. He works a 20-hour work week. He uses his own car, which he should not be doing. He should have some kind of a car that he could go to the scenes of different, when he goes to do different permits or anything else, or inspect buildings. He's let us know when Linda and I had our meeting that he's at a crossroads where he may be leaving. He would like to become a full-time employee. And I know along with this other gentleman with its sediment and erosion control, we need a hard look at trying to put Dexter on full-time. And we were gonna bring that up today, and I don't know how we can get the money, but we need to get this gentleman on board quick before he bails out. And he's getting all his credentials and everything else, and we don't need to lose somebody as valuable as him. And I don't know how we could do this, but in lieu of this person, he's another one that's smacking us in the face that we need to get this man on board. And I just don't know how, with the current budget, we're gonna be able to do that.
Mr. Mayor, if we could, I'd like to bring up that and a few other issues that came out of that meeting under new business.
Okay.
In answer to you, Councilman Edwards, I agree that we have a good employee. But I don't feel that our budget would allow us to make him full-time simply because we may leave. We have to have the workload, and that's what it
We
needs
have the
to.
workload.
Well, I need to know that we do.
And I hope I can
wanna see
answer
it.
that question
He can
when I
answer.
talk to you, and Gary can fill in. We had an extensive meeting, and I assure you that the workload is there. And I think the revenue from increasing Mr. Monroe's hours and maybe altering Ms. Davis's work title a little bit, the revenue would support both of those things. And I'll be glad to go into it now, if it's the pleasure of the chair.
But right now, the best option we have for the short term is to get the agreement signed with Westmoreland County. That'll get us through the springtime anyway. There's not a big building boom starting in the next 3 months, I don't think. And that'll give us time to talk about, if they can pick up part of that. And we will also have a lot more of the feedback from Whitestone by then. We may have some employees that we say, that because of efficiency, they might could do something else. So I'd hate to go out and hire somebody right now for just erosion and sediment, and then say, well, we have somebody here that we're gonna have to let go that's been with the town for 10 years because the function they're performing is not really necessary. Whereas we could use them if we could revamp how we're doing some things. But the agreement with Westmoreland would give us up until basically the end of June. Let us get into the new fiscal year, budget for whatever we need to do.
Yes, sir, and I would like the town council to take a look at the MOU, scratch through, and please give me feedback.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I would like for the town council, and I'll get you an electronic copy if you would like, the memorandum of understanding.
It's on there.
And Mr. Ham, I'd be remiss if at this moment I didn't share something that I feel very strongly about. This time in 2008, we were at this very same place with employees, positions, not right positions. When I became the interim town manager in the fall of 2008, and that budget ended in 2009, we were $440-something thousand in the hole. Part of that was due to the boat tax that didn't come in and things that didn't happen. I promise you that every year subsequent to that year, in the worst of times, we have turned back money to the town council every year from that budget. No tax increases, one salary increase at Mr. Sieber's insistence over all of those years. So in the best of times or the worst of times, given the support, we can deliver the dollars, we can do what we need to do with very thin dollars.
And Ms. Folds, I respect that. And I think as the town manager, it behooves you to reassure your people and all people, their people under them, that this Whitestone is in no way, in any means, a witch hunt. It is possibly a positive thing. And that's what I hope we can do at our individual meetings, and you project to your department heads as well. I get the feeling that people are scared, and we don't want that. I feel it from you when you make comments like that. And this council is extremely transparent. This council is united, and I'm telling you, I'm speaking for all of us. It is not a witch hunt. It is something that could turn out to be very positive for all the employees of this town.
Absolutely. I wanted to put that budget concern to rest.
Okay.
I assure you that when it's tight, and when we don't throw money around, you know, just adding bodies. And if it seems to you that way, you've got a concern, please absolutely do come to me. My door is always open. Because I promise you, in the worst of economic times, every single year, and I've never asked a single town council to raise taxes ever when I presented a budget.
I'd like to say one thing. I would agree that the memorandum with Westmoreland County should be pursued. It would definitely buy us time, save us some money, take it for as long a period of time as we can. We don't know if that may be extended. If it does, it's to our benefit. The other thing, it'll give us a chance to reorganize ourselves and collect our thoughts, and we'll have a much better perspective at that point to see where we go from there. So I think it's prudent that we at least wait till those things are done.
I agree with you, Councilman. I'm not going to give you any feedback on this because I don't think I'm prepared to change any wording. The only thing I would like to see taken out is the fact of where we offer to provide mileage. I think we ought to try and get it as much as we can for free. Yeah.
And that was the point that I was making.
Absolutely.
When they have to
Yeah.
come almost here,
You're
they're not
right.
charging any extra.
Yeah.
I think our attitude, I hope we're changing their opinion somewhat, you know, baby steps. But I want to show the county that we're cooperative, and hopefully they will respond the same way. That has not been true in the past, but I think it needs to change.
And I can't speak for the governing body, but in defense of the administrator, I have had nothing but cooperation.
Excuse me, can I ask a question real quick? Have any of you all been attending the Westmoreland County Board of Supervisors meetings? Have they discussed this at all in front of you, or?
Not this
No.
particular.
Okay, I was just,
We've talked about the consolidation, a little bit of the dispatch.
but
And
not this
we've
issue.
talked about working together more between our council / town administration and the supervisors / county administration. Like I said, from my experience, when Ms. Foles and Mr. Rosavi get together and talk about things, there's a lot of cooperation there. We've had some people in the past that, I don't know when it started getting built up, that we had a wall here, and Westmoreland didn't want to touch anything in Colonial Beach, and Colonial Beach didn't want Westmoreland to touch anything in the beach. But we need to get around that, and that's the reason I go to every one of the supervisors' meetings. I talk to them while they're down there before or after the meeting, and at least they know who we are now.
And I'd also like to add that
They've also learned to spell my name now, finally. No double M's anymore.
Double N. But also our town manager is probably in contact with Norma Sabi, probably 2 or 3 times a week. And that relationship is strong, and I don't think we would have a problem with this here. I think what Val's trying to do is extend some sort of professional courtesy by putting in some type of area for a fee, and I think Norm will probably say, don't worry about it. He's done that in the past, so I would expect that would be the situation.
Generally, the way it should be is whoever's requesting the permit would have to pay a fee to Westmoreland County.
And then
If we had our own person, they'd have to pay a fee to us. And the fees don't cover the entire cost of something like a zoning program or a building inspector program, but it helps offset some of the cost. Some of that work is built into, we do collect taxes, just like Westmoreland collects taxes.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. And you don't have to give me, if you have additional input and you would like me to send this electronically to you guys, I'd be happy to do that tomorrow. If you've got additional input, let me know, and if it's ready,
You already did that, didn't you, with me?
yes,
Okay.
I can bring it to the town council meeting, next meeting for the council to approve, and then I can move right along on it.
So do we have to advertise this and then draw up a resolution for it? Or?
No, sir, if the town council is happy with the MOU, I'll run it by Andre to take a quick look at it, do a resolution, add it to the agenda, or put it on the agenda for the next meeting, and if the town council approves it, then I can take it down to Norm and have it accountable for.
Would we need to put in the MOU that they consider the percentage change, and is that part of it? We
would
need to
need
put
add
that
that
in.
to it.
So, make a note of that.
Anything Gary
For the
thinks
town,
is
yeah.
really necessary.
We'll put some language in it to the effect that they will enforce the town of Colonial Beach's ENS
Okay.
ordinance as opposed to Westmoreland.
And that was the clarification I wanted today from DCR to make sure it was fine, it was okay, that since our ordinance is approved by them and it is legally adopted, that Westmoreland could go ahead and administer ours.
Thank you.
You're welcome. On the next item, rural development bond closing the sewer project. I know everyone's tired of talking about that, but I need to tell you that there will be a public hearing in April as required by this bond. It must be conducted, and the loan resolution adopted by the town council prior to closing. It looks like we will be closing in April. The public hearing has been advertised and is scheduled for the March 14th town council meeting. And if you would indulge me just to give you a little bit of a background on this whole project for a little while. And Mr. Murphy, jump in anytime. The project started out based on the preliminary engineering report as a $1.5 million project, $1.6 million project. The first phase of the project was the investigative phase with cameras going through the system and the area and so on. Once we started that work, and I can't remember when, a year and a half ago, we found, or the investigators found, that in some places the sewer lines were really, really bad. Some places they didn't exist. Some places they collapsed, and it was just not going to be a $1.5 million project. It was going to be a $4.2 million project. Rural development worked with town staff very cooperatively, and they funded this by calling it a cost overrun on the project. So it saved a lot of hoops and a lot of additional time that we would have to wait. And so here we are at this place, and I think I shared an email with you from the bond counsel who said he has never seen them move at such lightning speeds. And so we've got a really great relationship with that group, and we want to do everything to keep it that way. We will meet with them once a month as long as the project is in place. But this is how we got to the 2.4 million additional. Ownership of the boardwalk, all the related documents. Thank you, Ms. Brubaker, that you provided. Documents that Josh and Gary provided and Joan Grant provided. All those documents have been sent to the town attorney for further work. I don't know where she is on that. I thought she was going to be here this evening, but
I thought the council decided that we should do title work on those properties adjacent to the
that is
boardwalk.
exactly what she's going to do. All of those properties. I think there's six of them.
She's going to do the title work?
She is either going to do the title work
Or find someone
yes,
to do it. Okay. That's
She
good.
asked us to hand that ball off.
Because I think, although the documentation is there, it needs to be examined by a title examiner or an underwriter
Oh, absolutely.
to look at that.
Absolutely. But she asked us to hand that off to her. We had a basket full of stuff, and she took
I'm
that
sure.
one.
I'm sure.
She will be here tomorrow, but she did not plan on being here today.
That is correct. So we had a outside space. And those are all the items I have. We will talk in the new business about the appraisal and how you want us to proceed on the police building. That would be it. Okay. I forgot
got anything, email you. That's it.
Yeah, next thing we have on the agenda is introduction of new work session items / council presentation. Not real sure what we're doing there. That kind of, we're gonna cover most of the stuff in new business, and then we have a item underneath new business of just other matters, which leaves it open for this to be a real work session. You know, rather than council meeting type format, we want it to where we can just bring up anything and talk about it. As far as council presentations, I've got a couple of things to bring up. I had a meeting this week with some developers that are looking into possibly buying the Riverwood apartment complex. They're in the preliminary stages of looking at it. They met with me, went over what they're trying to do. It involves them getting involved with it and actually doing about $30,000 to $45,000 per unit in upgrades and rehabbing them. We sat down and talked with Chief Say about how things are going over there. They were quite complimentary about what they had seen the new management was doing, or the manager that's been there the past few years. They do have a security force that works well with us. So it could be a win-win for the town. So we gave them all the information we have, that where the town's situated, the history behind it and all. They own a lot of properties around the country, primarily Section 8 or low-rent housing. The way the stuff works, once they buy it, they'll apply for a grant from rural development, or a loan, not a grant, a loan. And they sell tax credits to investors. And that's the way they get their investment back and are able to pay off the loan. People with huge income tax bills, which I've never had that problem. They're looking for any way to keep paying taxes. So anyway, we met with them. Tommy and I were at the South Potomac River Community Relations Council quarterly meeting this morning up in Waldorf. And I'm starting to meet some of the other people, my counterparts over in Charles County, King George. And they're inviting me to go to a lot of places I can't get to on a golf cart. So, we'll divide this up between council members to assist. Anybody else got any presentation or anything they'd like to talk about before we get into new business? Or I'd like to ask Superintendent Bean. Congratulations, I understand you are the superintendent now.
Thank you.
Did you have anything you want to bring up today, or what's it been what's it been, a week now?
For a week. I'm still here anyway.
I apologize, I missed the last meeting y'all had where you brought up the initial budget you're working on now. As I mentioned earlier, y'all are taking a tremendous hit on the federal funding, whether it's sequestration or just cuts across the board or whatever they want to call it today. Until y'all really know what you're getting from the state and the federal funds, it would be tough at this time for the town to come up with $400,000. We're going to do whatever we can to work with you.
Well, thank you, and I know you will. We're planning a work session with all the board members for the next couple of weeks, and it may take more than one work session, because this was the initial draft of what we had received tentatively from the state. So that also may be subject to change once they finalize everything. But we're looking at under every rock I can possibly look under to see how we can manage things wisely. So it's a work in progress. I'm very, very happy that I'll be working with you all. I think that a lot of progress has been made over the last few years. And when you were talking a few minutes ago about the better relationship with Westmoreland, the Westmoreland superintendent and I get along very well. And she and I we attend a lot of meetings together, and we'll, carpool with each other, and we're working on, trying to consolidate some things, not the schools, but to try to look at better ways to save money, you know, because they're in the same boat we are, and even worse, because they've got a larger pool of money that they're dealing with, so I see nothing but good things moving forward.
I talked to Larry Roberson a little bit about just some ideas he was kicking around. And some of them may be transportation related. You know, we've got Westmoreland's running a bus to somewhere taking, 10 kids, and we're running a bus taking 8 others to the same place. You know, you could get all of them on one bus. We could carry them in the morning, Westmoreland could transport them in the afternoon or whatever. So I know that they're looking at working with us on a lot of that stuff.
They are. Rebecca Lowry and I have talked about several different things that we could do that would help both divisions, because we have the same needs just about in a lot of areas, including transportation. So, thank you.
When the Lady Drifters win the state championship, we get that $1 million prize, right?
I want to compliment you on the fundraiser basketball game your staff put together Monday night. It was very fun. Several of us attended, and we had a great time. And our illustrious mayor played ball and did his craft. No, but we had a good time, and I think that's good for great community, and I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I reminded some people earlier this week that a few years ago, we had one of these games as a fundraiser, but it was donkey basketball.
Oh, wow.
And I wish you could have seen me on the back of the donkey. So it was not pleasant.
Mr. Mayor, may I interrupt and just add one thing that I forgot, which is good news before you go further. The bridge, the 205 bridge, the road will be open on March the 8th. I sent an email out to everybody today. I talked to Mr. Brown this morning before they did their press release, but I didn't want to, up them. And Mr. Brown will also be at our meeting in March to speak with the council and talk about the Pomona Road issue and what VDOT is looking at this time, and would like to have comments from the town council on that if you choose to, and would also like the opportunity to ask members of the audience to provide some feedback, whether at that time or in writing later.
When is this?
At our next council meeting, March 14th. Yes.
I'm confused. What does he want to know? I mean, what are we talking about, Pomona Road?
There was an accident at Pomona, right there at Halls, and there is a citizen who was asking for a traffic light and that kind of thing. He just wanted to update the town council on where VDOT is on that, and we'll be able to.
He's also going to the supervisor's meeting too.
Yes, actually, he's doing the same thing at the supervisor's meeting.
The intersection is outside of Colonial Beach.
It is.
There's been a lot of talk about, they want to get people's thoughts from
Correct.
inside Colonial Beach as well as the other residents out that way.
We have not advertised this, though, right? So how are the citizens going to know that someone's going to be wanting their opinion?
I believe VDOT is doing a lot of advertising on that, but I will be delighted to do whatever you think that I can do to help get the word out. But yeah, he is going to advertise, so I'm sure. The way VDOT does whenever they're going to have an information session or a public comment meeting or something like that.
Do you have anything else?
No.
Superintendent?
I'm fine, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Anybody else have anything before we get into old business? Good, bad, or indifferent?
Well, I have a few things, but I guess they'll wait till new business.
Okay. All right, then. We need to get the chief back out patrolling roads here.
That's
So
right.
The next thing under old business, we'll talk about the consolidation of the 911 system, the dispatch. And we had an initial proposal that Mr. Razavi and Sheriff Alderson and Chief Say all sat down and went over what it looked like it would cost us. This is the worst case scenario. A lot of it we're already paying for anyway. The cost of the dispatcher's labor, we're already paying that for 4 people. They're talking about putting on maybe another 1 part-time person other than the 4 that we're already paying. He doesn't foresee them getting as much overtime as they have been getting with us because they're going to go into the mix with all those other dispatchers. So the bottom line on it is it would cost the town of Colonial Beach about $242,580 under the worst case scenario. $162,000 of that is strictly salaries. And that's the 4 full-time and 1 part-time position. The 20% share of the state county and state E911 positions cost is $46,000. The operation, maintenance, and dispatch cost, we would pick up a 20% share of that, and that's $34,000. Now, he costed out the 4 employees at about the highest he could envision, depending on what insurance they take, how they do their retirement, or whatever. So it could come in a lot less than this. Not a lot less, but somewhat less. And the way they would do this is, I guess they would bill us monthly based on the actual time these people work.
That's what I believe it said, and at the end of the year, they would do what's called the true-up, which is the way we do the wastewater treatment plant agreement with them currently.
And at this time, I'd like to ask Chief Say if he would speak a little bit about his feelings on this.
Well, this is like the 4th time that, and obviously we keep going forward until we decide we don't want to go, or we do want to go. I went to the supervisors meeting, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, and I basically sat out there and Administrator Wasabi basically made the presentation to the Board of Supervisors. There was a little bit of input from me, some input from Sheriff Balderson. Once again, Sheriff Balderson is maintained, he doesn't have a dog in the fight. He'll go with whatever, and he will continue to support us. Mr. Wasabi made a great presentation on presenting it to his Board of Supervisors. And after a little bit of discussion, they unanimously voted to, I think the next step is they approach you, and they throw the ball back in our court now, what we would like to make a decision, whether we want to do something. I'm going to still maintain that if there is a cost savings to be had, that would benefit us. More importantly is to get away from some potential disasters with outdated equipment and to increase our response time to aid anyone in this town. I think it would behoove us to strongly consider to go forward with them and give them our commitment to do so. And obviously they want to do it up front before they start bringing up the building and bringing in all the electronics and this and that. It would be a lot easier now, later on down the road, to say, oh yeah, we want to get on board now. I think that's the whole intent behind them wanting our commitment now as a town.
Chief Say, I am certainly in agreement with the plan as we have talked about. In 1999, Westmoreland County went forward with a very proactive digital commitment for their radio dispatch. And at that time, our fire service decided to stay with an analog system. And I just questioned, I had a personal conversation with Mr. Wasabi and asked him why the fire service did not. I'm wondering if this council could request someone from the fire service to come in and speak to that. I do know that in 1999 they elected as a unit, or however it works, not to move forward with the digital equipment. At this time, to get on board with digital equipment, it would cost about $1 million, $1.2 million for the fire service to do that. Well, of course, they want the town or the county to pay for that, and that's not likely. But Norm did tell me that as grants are dried up, that's not going to be a possibility. But there might be a possibility of a loan, and that he would work with the fire service at the appropriate time to secure that loan. I'm not putting you on the spot for it, but I want you to know, as far as police services, it's absolutely a no-brainer. But I want to make sure as a council, if we are going to move in that direction, the fire service, to me, needs to get on board. I don't know how complementary those analog and that digital service will be to each other, but I think communication is the key. And if the fire service has got outdated equipment, then we need to address that as a council. So could we invite a representative from the fire service to come and speak to that? I don't know if it would be Chief Roby or somebody from the county. I know we're fortunate enough to have one full-time paid firefighter in town, and that's a plus. I don't know if we'd speak to him or who exactly, but I'd like to have them come and be a part of this, because if we're going to do the police, then we might want to do the whole thing.
They're already consolidated on dispatch, it's just.
Yeah, but their
radios.
equipment is outdated and it's analog. And
Right.
if we're going to start from the ground up, maybe that would be a time that we could move forward on that. I don't know, it's just a question that came up.
There you get into we don't really have any say over the fire department or the rescue squad. We do give them a limited amount of funding, but they're independent, nonprofit corporations.
Absolutely, I know that. But
As far as the consolidation of the dispatch, it makes sense to do that at this point with the police. The fire and rescue is already consolidated in Montrose. And that's where some of the problems come from, is depending on how a call comes in, if a call for fire and rescue comes into the police department, then they have to transfer it down to Montrose.
And I understand we don't have anything to do with them, but sometimes issues with the fire department can become issues within our town. Right now, our building inspector is not called when there's a house fire. So
That's something we need to get with the fire department.
that's what I'm saying. I think we need to talk to a representative of the fire department.
Right now, what we need to concentrate on is, we've got to come up with a decision fairly quickly on consolidating the police dispatch. You know, we can't fix the fire department tonight, but we can get some kind of feedback over whether we want to move forward with this consolidation or not. Yes.
Chief, let me ask you, with digital here, the fire, are Oak Grove, Montrose, Westmoreland County, and the other things in Westmoreland County, are they all, is everybody in the fire service digital?
Almost straight
Do
up,
you know?
I don't know.
They are not.
I don't.
They are all analog. All of Westmoreland County
I don't
fire
know
service
that
is
part of
analog,
Fire services, no.
according to Mr. Rasavi.
Well, to get back to your situation with the Motorola, the radios and everything, I know it's a headache, and I know all your parts that you've got
Sure.
to keep yours running. The money, we talk about the salaries. I know that's not much of a savings, but are we looking at any kind of a savings by doing this? Believe me, I'm all for the consolidation. Don't get me wrong there. I'm looking forward to it. But is this town really going to see something?
Yes.
We are?
We're getting rid of some of the, like the T1 lines that are very expensive. We'll be not having to replace the equipment. You know, we're at the point now where I guess we're going to have to start replacing equipment.
It's going to happen, and when it does, we're going to have to divert back and rely on Westmoreland anyway.
Right. So
Just a
just
matter of time.
consolidating the equipment cost where, you know, Westmoreland, it's a larger operation, the cost would be spread out better than each of us trying to maintain our own base radio facility and all.
Mr. Mayor, I respect that we can't fix the fire department tonight, but I have another question for you, Chief. How do you communicate with the fire department?
How do I communicate?
Well, how do your women communicate on a call? You get a call and there's a car wreck on Pomona Road. How do you and the fire service communicate on that, or do you?
We don't. The calls typically go in through a 911 directly to Montrose. Even if we get a call, if you went out here right now and a car runs into the building out there, even if you call us, we're still going to have to call Montrose, and they do all the dispatching.
Okay. If a car runs into a building, does your officer notify our building inspector? I'm just curious.
No,
Okay,
we've never done that.
I just was
There's
curious.
a reason why, because ours is part-time and theirs is full-time. Like Mr. Bronco that works in Westmoreland County, he's their full-time building official. And I think that's probably why we're not calling our own officials, because it's been, dispatch knows that fire and police probably know that we don't have a full-time person on board. So we have to look for our full-time person to be called in to come back and inspect the building like at, up the street.
In my experience up here, if there were any accidents involving a vehicle in a building, majority of the time the damage is, the way we look at things, it's minor, and it's like, oh, well, the owner will be here tomorrow, and they put a piece of plywood over it. But on the other hand, if it is a huge structural, if it's damaged, a lot of cases, the fire department's going, they go respond, rescue squads will be there. And between all of the brains out there, a decision would be made to perhaps call a building inspector. But for the most part, the property owner, whenever, will get by and patch it up and make arrangements for another day to fix it. But that's typically what happens.
Thank you.
Well, I think one of the things we're trying to decide here is the dispatch. The idea of inspectors and doing things like that is another issue.
Absolutely.
And we'll have to address those at a different level. I think where you're dealing with the analog versus the digital's got to be put in place. We're going to be fixed with a cost of replacement. Do we have a cost of replacing equipment that we have now if we have to replace it if it fails?
Rough figures that I've heard people guess at.
Well,
We have not priced it out.
but it was a considerable expense, and our system, once Westmoreland's system comes online, may not communicate. And we would have to be hit with that expense all at once to upgrade ours. So I think it's just prudent that we go through with this here type of an approach. It's going to solve a lot of problems. It's going to make the response time shorter. It's going to centralize the communication. For that matter, the analog is still going to be used out in the field.
My concern is at what time does that not become compatible? I don't have a concern with consolidation. Absolutely, I'm for that. But I just wanted to bring up the fire department issue because at some time it might not be compatible with our police service.
Right.
This person would be very much in favor of consolidation.
Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, can you tell us the approximate cost savings?
Best guess.
Yes.
$44,000 a year.
Okay. And the way I understand it, that's a savings projected, as he said, on the worst-case scenario.
Right.
And that's not taking into consideration the upgrade cost. And I think I've heard a figure of like $1 million. I don't know, that might be wrong.
That's what I was here kicked around,
Okay,
$1 million
yes.
to, if ours went out tomorrow.
Well, it's
Yeah.
comparable to what the
Absolutely.
fire department.
It's
would
about
have
$1
to go
million.
through for theirs.
Right.
You know, we're looking at a cost savings of about $40,000 a year versus being hit with a $1 million bill at the moment Westmoreland turns their system on and ours fails.
And Mr. Mayor, I respect the fact that you're a number cruncher, but you certainly can't put a price on saving a life. And that's the big issue for me, the fact that our dispatch will be centralized and not flip everywhere around.
I mean, that was the primary issue that brought it up.
Absolutely.
We were having calls going back and forth, they'd get dropped. We had one, not this past weekend, the weekend before, I guess somebody fell out of a cab one night, and they called the police, and they were trying to get fire and rescue dispatch, or at least rescue. The call got dropped, then it had to be, you know, they called back, the cab driver called back, and said, please don't hang up on me again. They're like, well, we're trying to get you in touch with Montrose because they have to dispatch the rescue squad. So that's the type of things we're trying to get away from.
Guess we're all in agreement.
The fire department needs to come in and answer that question.
Could you invite them, or our representative, to speak to us?
Now, what does that mean that we've all agreed here? Do we have to bring this up at a council meeting and vote on it?
I believe that we need to check with the county and see who is going to be working on the memorandum of understanding, and we need an MOU for that, and get that document going, and then the time council should just take action at one time, instead of passing a resolution saying,
Okay.
and then let's just do the memorandum of understanding, and then vote on it, send, ship it around.
So this isn't going to occur till the new government center in Montrose is built.
Is that your
That's right.
understanding?
I haven't been involved in that conversation, knowing when, if it was pushed from us, that I don't know when that would be implemented.
So we cross our fingers and hope our equipment lasts at least that long.
That it would be when their government center got up, it would be.
Well, we can get a better answer from the county over the timeline on it. What they're looking for right now is, are y'all just out here fishing, or are you serious that you want us to start planning this and put together when we can start switching it over? So,
You know, I could be wrong, but I thought, I didn't view it the way you just asked it, not when they get their new lines and the government center goes up. They needed to have our answer before that happens.
Oh,
But
correct.
I was under the impression, I could be wrong, that it was going to be a very quick switch over. But we can check.
We could address that, but, you know, that's a phone call
And
can
when
answer
you're
that.
saying quick, are you meaning like 90 days or something like that?
I was under the impression that it would be probably less than 90 days, but I could be wrong.
I was under the impression it was waited till the new system, the new building was built, and then all that communication, Motorola was gonna put everything into that new building.
I believe that's when it becomes state of the art.
Well, that's what
But
I'm
you could be
saying,
right,
but-
because they're talking about new consoles.
You're talking a lot of money.
Yeah, and I don't know if they have the space right now for everybody. That was my question. But Mr. Rizavi did mention, Mayor, if you recall, he said, remember, we just can't flip the switch.
right.
And it's not gonna be a 30 to 60 days. That's why I asked 90 days.
But that wasn't talking about the new communications center.
No,
That's
no,
where
no.
they have to get with Verizon or whoever processes the T1 lines, and they have to go through a one-by-one program how calls come in. Because you can't just say if it's a 224 exchange, then it's Colonial Beach. Well, it could be Westmoreland, it could be Colonial Beach. He brought up the fact that
George Martin.
down on, I guess, Caroline County butts up against Westmoreland. Well, there's one place there where one side of the highway, I guess, is in Caroline County, and they've made it adamant that they want to stay as Caroline County being their first responders, even though Westmoreland has units closer, fire and rescue and all, and the people's insurance rates are going up because Caroline County's saying, we're the first responders, but our fire department's more than 3 miles away from you. But if somebody from that side of the street calls 911, the switches in Verizon have to know to send that call to Caroline. This side of the street, they have to know that one goes to Westmoreland. So that's the technical stuff he was talking about. It could take a few months. But as far as having to wait until they totally finish the judicial center, I didn't get the impression we were going to have to wait for that.
I
Maybe
didn't
he's
either.
thinking he could put our dispatcher somewhere where they're working out of now. But once we give them the, once we tell them, yes, we want to go through with this, then we can get a timeline on when it will be done.
Does that require a vote or a resolution or an advertisement or?
No, I think we
Val
just-
just, Val just explained that.
Yeah,
When you were
They
talking.
will need a
I'm sorry.
memorandum of understanding, and I don't have a copy of the letter with me. Is that what it said? And so I would talk to Andrea as well as Lauren about the MOU. And the town council could make one big vote and just vote on the document, approve the MOU, so the county knows we're serious, and then they would vote on it as well. It has to be signed off by all.
Thank you.
I think you have a consensus here that I think we're all for it. So unofficially, I think you could at least relay that to them.
Correct. Okay.
Are you all going to open that to a public hearing or no?
No, we can do this by resolution, can't we?
Okay.
Excellent. not an ordinance, you're not required to
I mean,
advertise.
if we get it on the March meeting, go ahead and pass a resolution saying, yes, we want to do this. I would invite, anybody who wants to come in and talk about it, yeah, great. But I don't think it requires us advertising any public hearing.
No, it's not, an ordinance is what would require that, this is not an ordinance. Now, Mr. Mayor, are you saying, go ahead and do a resolution on the March meeting saying we want to do that for the record?
In the meantime, call
Then
Mr.
we work on
Rosati
the
and tell him
MOU
that there's a
outside
consensus
of
of council, we want to do it. When is the supervisors meeting? Are they the first Monday?
So unless the business and align and start, yeah, we get the first.
So that they will be meeting before we will meet again. But if we can get Norm to pass on to them,
Yeah,
yes,
I'll talk
we want to do it.
later.
And then I'll be down there for the supervisors meeting and definitely we'll talk about it with them. Understanding that it won't be voted on for about 3 days after their meeting.
Sure.
But I think that'll satisfy what they were looking for as far as, getting a decision down as soon as possible so they can start
And if you
planning.
would like to, I can even do something on letterhead and email it to them there as well. So we'll be voting on it at the next meeting, to make it official. We're going to move forward. I'll send you a letter.
Okay, anything else on the consolidation proposal? Going once, going twice?
We're through?
No.
Sold is what he should have said.
All right, now we can get into new business. And we've got a couple things on the agenda here, and then we'll open it up for anything else that we want to talk about. First one, the go forward with Mr. Cirillo, have an item discussion of work session format.
I'm going to let my partner here go into that. I will just say that I think the first work session, have we had one or two? This is, well, we had a continued one. I think we deviated from what we intended to do, and we need to get on schedule, and actually this one is going really well. So, Mr. Shiro.
Chief, I'm sorry, go ahead, man.
You're going well, I'll take that back. But go ahead.
Well, basically what we want to do as far as the work sessions, make it clear to the public, and I think we're all pretty much in agreement. We want to have more meetings to focus in and get together with the town, everybody together, to focus in on priorities, setting issues, and our approach. How do we do things? Those are the types of things that will be worked out in the work sessions. But the work sessions will be, the public will come and watch us and do things, but it's not really open for public comment. Those are going to be things that are reserved for the council sessions where you actually have something to say about something. Anybody else want to add anything that?
Are you done?
She needs you.
Or is that your first part?
When we talk about the work session, not involving the public.
Right. And, well, not involving the public as far as having people ask questions, comments, and things like that. It's basically for us to discuss and actually work through things that we have to work through, to stay focused on the issues and to use our time effectively. If that's something that you all would like to agree on, or?
See, when we set it up, before we went to the committee system, they used to have work sessions, and if somebody sat down in the audience, I mean, it's not like we're going to have a room full of people, but if somebody has an idea of something, they want to bring it up, I felt like we owed it to them to at least answer them or, let them say what they wanted to, bring up their ideas. We keep talking about we want people to volunteer, we want people to help, we want to be open, and yet we tell them, but you can't speak to us when we're sitting back here in a work session. And that always bothered me before I was on the council, when I'd sit out there and I'd be told, well, you can't speak at this particular thing, but you can speak at this one, but you only get 3 minutes. A bell will go off, like Pavlov's dog, and you have to shut up at that moment. And I've talked to people that say they think the work sessions present more openness if you let people express their ideas, ask questions. If it's something we need to research, we'll tell them, we'll get them an answer back to them.
Okay.
Isn't that what we do at council meetings, though?
At council meetings, we have a public input.
The reason,
Citizen
and I'll get with you in just a minute, Dr. Farley. As everyone knows, we can't have an illegal meeting. Only 2 people can meet. If we have 3, it's illegal. Well, yeah, but advertising costs a lot of money, and I want to save as much as I can. However, we've got a lot of things that we need to do. We're spending a lot of time on the phone trying to communicate, because the other part of this is that I believe, and some of the others have agreed with me, that we need to have more work sessions, at least in the beginning. I hope it won't go on forever, because I can't work at this pace forever. But for 3-4 months, I think what we were going to recommend is that we have 1 work session a week, which is increasing the work session from 1 a month to 4 a month, knowing that not every member will be able to come to every meeting, because one of our members has a job and children. So we know that. And probably Mr. Siebert's going to golf some and not going to make it either. And that's fine. But those of us that feel we need to meet, we want to meet. Now, the first work session, we really didn't get any of what we planned to do and discuss done, because there was considerable citizen input. And I think there can be exceptions to it, but our work sessions, I believe, and I was not allowed to speak most of the time in committee meetings as a citizen. So, and I'm not trying to shut people up. I'm getting phone calls all the time. So that's why we're doing this. Jim's a better speaker than me, so he might be able to tell you better. But that, Mr. Mayor, that's what we're trying to do. I'm dedicated to making a change, to do that. And we're working as a team, truly as a team. New council, that's our name, new council. But to do that, we need to be able to talk to each other. And sometimes I'm spending 6 hours on the phone, carrying something from one person to the other. And it would be much more efficient to do that in a meeting once a week.
Okay, let me try to clarify what we're trying to do. The work sessions I vision the work session to be, is something where we're not voting on anything. We're contemplating and formulating ideas, collecting ideas, and trying to formulate an approach on where to go. It's an open discussion. The sky's the limit. We know, we're not all knowledgeable, but we try to stay tuned into what the issues should be. Val informs us about certain issues that are coming up, and we try to talk about those things. Each department head gives us priorities. We want to get those priorities formulated. We want to try to talk about and discuss which direction should we go in. Okay, set up a roadmap. But it's an open discussion between us to formulate where we're going. To have public input, it's not that we don't want it, we do want it, but at that point in time, nothing's been decided. And you all need to understand that nothing has been decided. We're trying to set up a game plan. Once we establish a game plan, at the committee meetings, or whatever you want to call work sessions, we're open to discuss these things, and we need to stay focused on the issues, okay? To be able to define what needs to be done step by step. We're not putting anything into place. We're just trying to collect our thoughts and get a game plan. Organize our approaches to be able to say, this is what we can do. A lot of things we talk about may never happen, but the things that we can agree on, we will put things in motion. We'll say, okay, we'll have a council meeting where we'll put things into a resolution format. People will have the opportunity to talk about those things at that point in time, or it'll be a public hearing of some type. We're not making a decision, before the public has a chance to comment. What we're trying to do is to exercise good judgment and plan and use our time wisely to be able to focus on things without interruption and without distraction. There's a lot of good ideas out there in the public, and we definitely want to know about it, but that should take another role, another format. And that's my vision of a work session.
And I'd like to see what Dr. Farney has to say.
I compliment you on trying to streamline your work session, and I compliment you on the idea of creating a direction rather than a knee-jerk reaction, which I think has been prevalent in the past few councils. However, how does the citizen input to the council? 3 minutes per month in a cut and dried council meeting where you're not allowed to ask questions doesn't cut it for me. I think that there needs to be some sort of citizen-council interface where if someone doesn't understand what's going on, they can ask questions and get a reasonable answer. When everything comes down to the monthly meeting where everything is cut and dried and you all sit there and don't respond to any accusation that someone may present, I think that that does a disservice to you, and I think it does a disservice to the community. People feel disenfranchised because it's very difficult to input. And I like the way you're going, but there needs to be some form of, some venue where citizens can input their ideas and ask questions. Right now, we don't have that.
Can I respond to that?
I wanted to respond also. So
For me, okay, I would broadcast my email, my phone number. We have an office at Town Center now. Call me up. I'll set up a time with you, sit down and talk to you about the specific issue that you have on your mind, or anybody. And any of the council members could do the same. And we'll all be available to do that. It's much more effective for you to talk to us about your specific issue than to have it muddied through the water where someone has a disagreement with your views. You should be able to express your views cleanly, meaning that we're listening to just you at that point in time. Now, other people may have an opposing view, and we may hear those. It just depends on how people turn out. Sometimes things are better talked about one-on-one, and you can share your ideas much more openly. Okay, I just think conducting business in that way opens up the doors to more open discussions more freely, more candid type of approaches. In something like this here, where we're trying to actually focus in on issues and set up some kind of an approach to doing something, we don't know where we're going yet. Okay, we all don't have a set of directions that say the town is marching in this direction, and we're trying to do that, and we're going to do the best job we can. At the same time, you know, we're here, and we don't have a lot of time to deal with it. I mean, we started today at 4:30, it's 6 now. We don't want to stay until midnight and go through all the different things that can be done. There's a million issues out there, and I think there's an appropriate time for all of those issues to be addressed, and I think there's a more appropriate manner for those issues to be addressed. You can concentrate your efforts. If you call me up and say, hey, Jim, I have an issue with, Public Works, something with Public Works. Well, you can get together with Gary Sieber. He can give you more information because he's more in tune to it. We can set up a time with him. If you have something about administrative budget, you can get me or Wanda, or safety with Tommy, or any other issue. You know, we can get the appropriate people in place so you can actually get answers. A lot of times you can ask us questions. We don't know the answers. You know, I might have to say, hey, Rob, can you come with me in a meeting, or Jill, or Val? And that would be more appropriate and help solve that particular problem, or at least get you the answers that you want. The work sessions are, I think by the name, work session is a work session. It's a work in progress where you are trying to gather your thoughts, collect your thoughts, and then formulate some kind of approach that's reasonable. you have to have a chance, you have to give us a chance to think about it and talk about it. That's just the way I think it happens. If someone comes to you and says, well, Peter, what are you going to do about this? If you haven't thought about it, how can you respond? If we talk about, say, building a new pier, it's an idea. We haven't thought through the process or how to do it. It might be a good idea, it might not be a good idea, but we haven't even thought through the process. So, you know, to have that discussion is kind of mute. It doesn't give you any more information. Now, if you're a pier builder, okay, and you heard us talking about it, then we sat down and had a discussion, we can go through the details, and maybe you can give us some insight in that direction. So,
I just want to add to that. I hope, Dr. Farney, that you've noticed our council meetings are not the way they used to be. We are giving answers. It's not a one-way conversation anymore. I've noted, and what, did we consciously do it? I don't think we did. We never voted to do that. But as our previous council said, no answers, we haven't practiced that. If we have an answer when you stand up and address something, we're all talkers. We're going to talk back to you. If we have an answer, we'll let you know. And I don't know about you, Mr. Mayor, but you've been practicing that too at council meetings. So as our previous mayor set that tone, this council does not have that attitude. Now, when someone gets up and makes a personal attack, no, we're not going to answer that when it truly is a personal attack, which we had at our first meeting. But if you have a question, you have a concern, and we know anything about it, I know I'm going to answer you, and I think I probably speak for the others as well.
And I think we're talking about two different things here. At the council official meetings, I get right with you. At the council meetings once a month, we have a section called citizen input. We've taken off the 3-minute time limit. We took that out of the bylaws. We are answering people if we have an answer. I think we're being a lot more open during that session. At the work session, I wasn't talking about having, you know, a category called citizen input. It was, if we're up here talking about consolidation of the dispatch system, and someone raises their hand, such as Dr. Farney, and says, have you thought about this? I think they should be allowed to give us their input on specific things that we're talking about there. Not for them to stand up and say, I think we should barricade the road out front. Why don't y'all talk about that? Now, that's something you need to bring up one-on-one with whatever point of contact it would be. But if someone is sitting in the audience and we're discussing something and we try to be kind of laid back is what I call it. You know, I'm not putting on a tie to sit up here and act like I can't listen to anybody. But if someone raises their hand and says, on the items y'all are discussing right now, let me give you a little bit of what I'm seeing on something, or I saw that take place somewhere. And you can't just tell them, I don't care what you know right now, we're busy working on it, so, you know, don't say a word to us.
Well, it's hard to limit someone I agree with you in theory. As long as it doesn't get out of our control, which
if we're talking
it
about
has before.
consolidation and dispatch, and someone raises their hand.
And he raised his hand and I addressed him.
Right.
And I don't see anything wrong with that either. But if you talk, and you know it's not going to happen, but this room we're filled to capacity, and everyone had something to say, we wouldn't probably get anything done. I don't think we're at that point yet, so I'm still flexible about it. But I do know that we need to be able to work during our work session and not have a lot of people going to the podium. And we've taken the 3-minute rule off even during council. And I know one night somebody talked for 20 minutes. And then I thought, why did we take that through? And you know that I've been against 3 minutes forever because this is a small town and we don't have a lot of people speaking. So I think they need to be heard. But when somebody stands up and repeats and repeats and repeats themselves for 20 minutes.
Okay, Linda, you have a question?
Well, with all due respect.
Or a comment?
I have a comment and a suggestion. With all due respect, the reason that you guys want to have your work sessions more often is so that you don't have to call each other on the phone. And I understand, Mr. Chiarello, you saying that we can call you. But by the same token, if there's a subject that all of you have talked about, then I may have to call you, then I may have to call Ms. Goforth, then I may have to call Ms. Brubaker, and then Mr. Edwards, and so on and so forth. It's easier for us, as the public or the press, to ask the questions at the time. Now, my suggestion is that there be some rules made so that maybe it is, if in your work sessions too many people are getting you off focus, maybe the rule could be set that after you guys are done with your discussion, allow the council to speak first, and then the public can make comments, or something to that effect.
I just want to point out to everybody, this is a discussion, okay?
Oh, I know.
It's a discussion to formulate how we should conduct the work sessions. And exactly what you said, rules need to be put in place. And as we're trying to discuss this and formulate that, your input is valuable. At the same time, if we had a lot of people in the audience at this point and we were going back and forth with this, and some people would say, no, we want it this way, that way, we would have never had a chance or an opportunity to discuss amongst ourselves on how we want to really conduct the meeting. It's something that we have to formulate, okay, because we have to work with it, okay? We're trying to make our time more efficient. It's not that we don't want to communicate with the public at all. That's not the case. But I think we're just saying, yes, it could be some kind of happy medium taken with some rules put in place. We'll have our work session. When the work session's over, I'll be happy to stay around and talk to anybody.
I mean, I think we could even open it up for a limited amount of time, 15 minutes for input, I don't know. Like I said, I'm flexible. But I just know that we need to have some time that we can actually have a true work session, because we don't talk as a group any other time.
No, you can't.
Yeah. A long time ago, before a lot of these folks were on council or ever came to a meeting, that I sat in that audience at work sessions. Dr. Farney knows, a few years back, when the work sessions went on, everybody in their different committees had something to say. A lot of times, there wasn't a lot going on. You were out of here within a very quick portion of time. I don't see where, unless we got really big agendas, and we keep talking about how we want people to come to these meetings, council, we gripe up here because we don't see enough of y'all out in the audience. Now we're going to drive you away. My personal feelings, if I'm public safety and Dr. Farney or whoever is sitting in that audience and he's taking time out to come to the work session, anybody that if I have something and he brings up a great idea, I can't see why, there's no reason why it can't be just like what it was with a long time ago. The work sessions that I ever saw never took that long, unless you were long-winded, because you usually had what you had to say already done with your different committees. And I just feel it'd be wrong to tell this, then you'd never have nobody in a work session. We'd be babbling amongst ourselves, and there's nobody sitting out there trying to listen to us. And I would prefer, Dr. Farney, to have you there, sir, or anybody.
I think that our work session needs to be more structured. In the next line item, we have goals. And I think we have a lot of things that we're new, we're motivated, we're excited. And Dr. Farney used the knee-jerk reaction. Ooh, I gotta mention that. I think we need the time to communicate amongst ourselves. I cannot talk to Jim, tell Wanda what Jim said, tell Tommy what Jim said, then talk to Tim. I can't do it. I'm not that black and white. I'm not that precise. So I might use a different adjective and then things get all mixed up. I do believe communication is a very important thing. That's one of the things I want to talk about under new business. Personally, I'd be willing to talk to anybody I don't have any cards here tonight, but you can get, my email is the town email. We're listed in the phone book. I work at U.S. Titles. You can call me at home. I'm always willing to meet with anybody. But I think a limited amount of time might be a good idea, but on the other hand, I'm flexible. and I will do what our majority thinks. We already have on the agenda to have more work sessions, so we know that we have a lot to accomplish. What's the best way to accomplish it? I don't feel like having 15, 20 citizens with things to say, calling us individually is the answer. But I don't expect that we'll get that many people to turn out either. I think maybe we ought to wait till it is a problem. It hasn't been a problem, or maybe it was before I was here. Maybe we'll wait till it's a problem. This is a place that I need to be able to say to you, Jim, I disagree, but we're not really going to go back and duke it out. I want to let this council, the public know how unified this council is. I disagree with my husband on a daily basis. And because I disagree with something Jim says here, I'm able to separate that, and we have been able to do that. And we want to remain transparent, and we want to come across. So I think maybe letting the citizen have a little bit of input is a good thing.
Somebody else had their hand up out there?
I'm reluctant to speak.
Since when?
Sorry, honey, but I have to say something. I agree with a little bit of what all of you said. There's truth to what everybody just said. I agree wholeheartedly with Peter that it's imperative that the few of us who come, sometimes I'm sitting here and I have nothing to say, which is rare, but sometimes you might get into a conversation about something that I'm just bursting to give input. And sometimes that input might be helpful to you, you know, and it may not. But it's great for those of us that do show up. I don't think it's ever going to be a major problem where you're going to have, at normal work sessions, where you're going to have, you know, every seat here taken and people consuming the time that you have. And I think most of the time it's not going to be a problem, but it's great to leave it flexible and open a little bit so that informal response somebody might have for all of you to hear it. Because if it's one-on-one, it's not the same as if all of you could hear what somebody has to say. So that's all I have to say.
Did you have something to say, ma'am?
Well, she pretty much, to reiterate what she has said, I'm new to the area, and I'm trying to learn this, and I'm trying to get involved in the community. I'm trying to get the community involved in the decision and activities that the council is making right now. But I can't get them to come in if you will restrict them from expressing their opinions. I myself feel sometimes that my opinion is restricted. And I don't want to feel that way. As far as the one-on-one conversation, phone conversation, my opinion that is not a good idea because usually when it transcends to another person, it changes the validity of the conversation that you and I had. And when it transfers down to someone else, it gets depleted. So it's better when it's in a form like the council right now. That way everyone hear the same thing and come up with their own opinion and own decision. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm. Just to let you know, this here was brought up, I'm playing kind of devil's advocate a little bit here.
That's fine.
Okay, I'm trying to get us to agree on the format for the work session. All these ideas are great. My idea is not the one that's cast in concrete. I think there needs to be structure and rules. And out of this here, there's a lot of good ideas, and I think we need to put them all together to complete our picture. And that's the idea of having open discussion, to be able to have inputs, things like that. We are able to explain to you how we feel about certain things, and now you're allowed to explain how you feel about certain things. And it's a good communication exercise in itself. At the same time, I still feel very strongly, okay, that this council needs to have a dedicated time to be able to seriously buckle down to discuss things that we can resolve, okay, to focus in on things. At that point, There could be times for discussions on certain issues, or all the issues. I don't know exactly how to stage that, or what type of rules to set up, but that's what we're here to discuss. Let's formulate that. Let's try to, collectively come together on some kind of issues. And if people that are not here don't have an opportunity to say anything.
And rightfully so, but.
All of you get a pass card, you can speak again.
Yeah, rightfully so. You said that you're thinking about increasing the amount of time that you come together as a group, 4 times a week. Maybe 3 times out of that week, let the public express themselves. And the 4th time, let it be closed to the public. By that time, you'll be making your decision and coming to terms with whatever the public has brought forth to you.
And that's not a bad idea, but I think we need to have it routine because, oh, this is the 3rd one, I didn't know I couldn't speak, I think if we structure it, we have an agenda, we add on the bottom of the agenda 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever you desire.
I agree with that. I think that's a better idea.
A half an hour per speaker?
And I'm not opposed if we're on a subject and one of you with a pass card has a question, you put your hand up. What I'm opposed to is when it's off the subject and someone is extremely long-winded and we don't accomplish what we had hoped to accomplish.
It never ever happened much.
Well, I disagree with you. I think it did happen in the first
If,
couple of months.
if that does happen, can't the mayor wrap him down?
Pardon?
If that does happen, can't the mayor wrap him down?
Yes, he can.
If he leaves the gavel on this side.
Something else?
I'd like to make the final comment before, I think that you've gotten enough ideas. I appreciate the invitation to call each of you individually. I wouldn't think of doing that unless it was an emergency. You all put in so much time, you value your time off. And I would not dare to put my trifling comment to you in your valuable time off. I think what she said is true. If you have a certain number of work sessions, let the public say something for 1 or 2.
I have a question. I didn't hear what you said, Councilman. It used to be a half an hour per committee?
A couple years ago.
What is it called? I'm sorry, Mayor.
Each committee, when we had the 4 committees, had a half an hour apiece, a lot of time. If it ran over, most of the time it never ran over that I recall. And most of the time, people at the audience are saying, well, I know the police, public safety is going to meet at 6, and when Gary was through at 5:45, I could chime right in and start with mine. But it never said you've got 5:30 and I can't talk until 6. That's not the way it was.
We've gotten away from that structure now, haven't we, Mayor? And
yeah,
we're all speaking to all issues. With due respect, I know you're public safety, but I thought we were going towards a more unified, informed council that we didn't have blinders on until we came together about public safety. I mean, you and I might talk about it, you and I might talk about a personnel issue. I don't think just because Jim is administration that it totally falls on him all the answers. I don't think one person has all the answers. Jim might. But I think allotting time,
And I just want to add to that, Tommy, when it was structured that way, I think those committee meetings were spaced, 45 minutes apart or something like that?
30.
About half an hour to 45 minutes.
Okay, because I would come to them, and when it was set for a time like that, if I only planned to come to one, and it happened to be in the middle, it still took a long time, is the point I'm making. And then sometimes you weren't allowed to speak. It was up to the chairman of that committee as to whether he would allow you to speak or not. And they didn't announce whether you were allowed to speak. I've stood at the podium and addressed that as a citizen. So I don't want to shut anyone up, but I will just tell you one thing I got this week. I was out until probably 6:30 one evening. When I got home on my iPad, I had a request from a citizen. And I guess because I'm maybe administration, I got it, but it was concerning our website. But it was short and concise, very clear. As soon as I got it, I forwarded it to our town manager because I didn't know the answer. She must sit by her computer. She stays in her office all the time. But anyway, I guess she got back to me within 10, 15 minutes, I don't know. I had that citizen's answer, and I didn't leave it to her to contact him back. I said, Val, would you give me the answer to this, because I don't know it. But give it to me, because I'm going to forward it on. So that gentleman's answer in an email got answered, and he was very happy. And he said, I've never had anyone respond so quickly. And I admitted that I didn't know the answer. I had to go to our town manager. But I think that shows how this council is acting a little differently. And then I got a compliment from him, and I addressed that again. And I hoped he would be here tonight, but he's not, because I don't know what he looks like. I just know a name. So, that works well, because then we have the time at the moment to address it, and it's also documented. I like a paper trail.
All I have to say is, being there during the time we had committees, and I'm not trying to place fault or anything, we're looking at trying to create a better system to be more effective. The committees back then, quite frankly, when I came and sat in this chair during a committee meeting, we very rarely talked about too many things. There was no committees that met. It was, I don't know how it was done. We came here and public safety would give public safety, economics would give, it would be like separate entities. We never really had conversations about it. Now we're having conversations more between ourselves, phone-wise, but at the same time we're discussing things that we should be talking about in a group. It's much easier for us to say, okay, how do we feel about this particular issue? We can broadcast how we feel to everybody in the group. Everybody in the group at the same time can hear the same thing. Again, it's not the telephone tree, you said this and I said that, and now it's something different. You hear it from me, or you're hearing it from Juan, or you're hearing it from Tommy, or Linda, or Mike, or anybody. The idea of having a work session is that we can openly discuss things. And maybe some of the rules are is that what we're discussing is what people can ask us questions about, or add their input to. If we're talking about, the boardwalk, or we're talking about the pier, or public works, or something like that, those are times where you can join in if you have something to add to those particular issues that we're talking about. Not to say, well, I want to talk about this thing down here, and that happened last month, or something like that, or there's a dog here that totally separate than what we're trying to focus on. It's a distraction, okay? It's not efficient. And in any business, if you're trying to make things work, you try to organize your meetings so you could approach things in an organized fashion, to completely discuss them as thoroughly as you can, to formulate, a position. And that to me is what I envisioned as a work session.
Mr. Mayor, can we agree on the fact that we're going to have our continued work session, whether we have 5 or 12 or 1 a month, we'll deal with that, but we'll still have our agenda, and at the end of the agenda, have a few moments for public input. We've spent an inordinate amount of time.
What Jim was just talking about, and what I've got to say is, a council session, you have a set period of time there, it says citizen input. They come in, they talk about, they don't like the looks of the tree, or they don't like the way the
That's what I just said, Mike. That's what I just said.
At a council meeting.
Oh, okay.
But at the work session meeting, I'm saying that, if we're sitting here talking about, for example, work session format, and someone, Dr. Farney says, well, I have an idea about that, and this is my feelings. If it's on that subject, they should be allowed to speak.
Okay, well, I'll agree with that.
In the one work session we've had prior to this one, I didn't see a lot of people coming in and treating it like the citizen input thing, and saying, I don't like the way somebody's keeping their yard. I want y'all to fix it right now.
I understand. Well, we've spent a ridiculous amount of time on whether we're going to let the public, not let the public, encourage the public to speak. Either we are or we are. I'll cut to the chase.
I will go on record saying at a work session, unless we change the bylaws, if someone raises their hand and wants to speak on an issue that we're discussing, I, as a chair, will say, what have you got to say? If they stand up, they start talking about a tree down here when we're talking about a bush over here, I'm going to say that's not pertinent to what we're discussing. That way, you get only the input, people, as Jim said, we're talking about a pier. We might have a master pier builder that got bored and wandered in off the street. And I want to hear from that person if we're talking about building a pier. So,
I agree with you.
if we have any proposals on changing the bylaws, which we would have to do to say people can't talk at a work session, as Linda said, unless it gets out of control.
Let's wait and see. Let's don't try
I haven't
nothing.
seen it being out of control. We spent more time tonight talking about not letting people talk than we spent on starting work sessions.
But we let them
So we let everybody talk.
Thank you very much. Thank you for letting us talk.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I throw this proposal out to the council, and you don't have to answer now. This is something that staff can help with, and we've worked out a pretty good arrangement where we get some work done outside of a meeting environment. So maybe that's something I could work with the other.
I don't see how the staff could help. I mean, the issue is they want to talk to us here when we're talking.
No,
So,
I meant as far as
I-
getting work accomplished. You know, you said when we want to focus on work. So I'm saying if there's an administration and or a budget issue, I'd be willing to work some off times with both of you to move those along before you bring it to, say, a work session.
That's fair. Well, I think though, what the issue is, not trying to take your time, but letting the public interact with the council itself.
It's
And,
a feeling of comfort, I think, and that we hear them, that we really hear them. And I understand that and appreciate it, because I think all of you know that I've been out there for a long time. So you're preaching to the choir. And I agree, I want to hear the input, as long as it pertains, you know, it's concise and it pertains to what we're discussing. It pertains to the topic. I'm flexible.
Did you have something, Rob?
Yeah, actually, I was going to say that this is actually pretty satisfying, the way I see this moving along, because as we're discussing issues and, you know, or potential issues, I believe that this group focus and everyone's getting on the same page is probably a good thing. And with the citizen input, I believe that it's, as we're moving into big things, little things, whatever, that we have as issues out there, it gets to help in actually solving the problems and everybody being on the same page. So I like what I see. So.
Thank you.
Do we have agreements? What kind of agreements do we have?
Absolutely not.
Move along. I agree to this.
Okay.
My feeling is that if I'm sitting here and that's the only thing the mayor gets to do sometimes,
You get to ride the parade.
ride the parade. But if I see somebody's hand go up, I will call on them and ask them if you know, what they have. And we can make it clear to everybody, you know, if you could keep it to what we're discussing at the time. And I don't see where it has taken up that much of our time in the past work session or the last council meeting, that we didn't have a time limit on citizen input. The last work session, we talk a whole lot more than anybody in the audience ever did. And like I say, I will continue to call on people. If they stand up and they come up with something totally out in left field from what we're talking about, I will say, I don't believe that's pertinent now. You need to bring that to citizen input at a regular council meeting. This is a work session on these issues. And, you know, that way you get the input from people, but you don't limit it. We're not all geniuses up here, we can use any input we can get, but it should be focused on the topics we're discussing at that particular work session.
But you are limiting it to the topic that we're discussing.
And you will
just
agree to
said
keep
not-
them on that topic?
Try to keep them on that topic.
If Dr. Farney raised his hand right now, stood up and said, I want to talk about a barricade in the street, I'd say, that's not on the topic that we're on right now. I'm determined to get you to put a barricade up, right?
I think we have an agreement.
Okay.
Next.
Goal setting process, Mr. Sherrill.
Okay. Setting goals. You know, if all of us were told right now, let's go meet, we would never know, we would never meet in the same place. And there are a lot of different things, goals that we all have in different departments, and I've asked the staff to email me at least 2 goals or objectives that they would like to accomplish in 2013. That's not putting anything, I didn't make any guarantees to anybody that we would accomplish any of those goals. I just wanted people to think about it, because those ideas are going to come up. Those things need to come up with Whitestone. Those are going to be things that they're going to be trying to consolidate where this town is headed, to give us direction. And you all, the taxpayer, elected us to be up here to help set the course for this town. Where are we headed? Where are we going? How are we going to get there? And it's up to us to try to formulate how and what gets done in what order. We're going to do the best job we can. We're not experts. We're going to really try to help encourage everybody in this community to get involved, and the entire staff. Everybody works together openly in our communications. No walls, nothing barred. It's just the set goals. What does that mean? And basically, I'm trying to open this up for a discussion on it so we all can kind of at least get the same idea what that is. And any comments?
Well, I'm glad you're asking for input from the managers or town employees. I did not see a copy of that email. Maybe I missed it or whatever. I would like to have some input from your different council members. There's a million things running through my head in the short time I've been associated with the council. All are not town priorities, some are Linda priorities, some are public safety, some are administration. I would like to see requests from each one of us, a set of goals, and where we, did you do that? Okay, well, I missed.
He asked for 2.
For 2 goals from each one of us? I don't know if I can limit it
I
to
didn't
2.
ask for the council, I asked that of the managers.
Oh, all right.
Okay.
I thought you meant the council too.
Well, I was going to
so
ask you
can't-
all to do it, you know,
Great.
I know
Yeah.
it's probably not the best preparation to say to everybody here. I didn't get a chance to do that because of time constraints.
Understand.
Have a life sometimes. Or try. The idea was to present the idea of people thinking in that type of framework to set goals, what they would like to accomplish during the year. Okay, everybody that submitted goals has different goals. Okay, Joan has 4. Rob has, Jill has, Val, Gary has quite a few.
Are you going to bring them forward to the council?
I'll email you all copies of everything. Some of it was just a kind of a practice drill to me, to get everybody to see that we're not on the same page. Okay? What does that mean? Public Works has their issues, wastewater treatment has their issues, management has their issues, Joan has their issues, Gary has their issues. We have our issues, each individual. We're not going any place because we have so many things, so many directions we're going in. So what I would like to do is challenge this council to come up with a list of 10 priorities that we would like to accomplish in a specific order. If, for example, the number one priority, and I'm not going to say what it is, because I don't want to just make it my idea, because it's not. Whatever the idea is, whatever that concept is, that we all work collectively to solve it. And we'll all work together to do that. There may be things that Joan can do from her perspective, maybe things that Val can do, or Rob, or Jill, or Gary, or me, or we all have our own things to add, but we're going to solve one problem. And that focus, that direction, gives us a direction, okay? Based on what we all decide collectively. We will all feel good about it because it's not, you're not doing what I want.
I'm not pulling in one direction and you're pulling in.
Correct. We're all going in the same direction, okay? That's a true team. When you play football, or basketball, I don't play basketball, you know, everybody has the idea that the ball is supposed to go through the hoop on the other side, not this side.
Exactly.
Okay, so we work as a team.
So you're still formulating some of those goals from your department heads, et cetera?
Yes, it's not finalized, and I don't think I should be the one to finalize that. I would like Whitestone to help formulate
That's what
that.
I was
I want
thinking.
everybody to collectively be thinking what they should be. And it's a discussion on how to set priorities, not to set the priorities. I mean, I would love to sit down right now and set priorities. I'm anxious to get going, like all of you are. But to be fair to everybody, and to be fair to this town, we need to be uniform in our approach. We need to be focused on our approach. To say that you know, you want to do the roads, okay, and Rob wants to do the water system, and Jill wants to do the wastewater. You know, Val has, you know, she wants a municipal town center, and you know, Tommy wants to revamp the entire safety procedures throughout the town. Okay, we're not going to accomplish anything. Okay, but if we all say Tommy wants to do safety first, that becomes voted on top priority. We all collectively support what Tommy wants to do, and Tommy's going to be helping direct us to some degree, and we're going to try to help him solve that problem.
And that's what we have agreed upon as a council,
Correct.
to move in the same direction.
Correct.
Absolutely, I agree with you.
So it's just a matter of, you know, us giving some thought to that process. This is a discussion to formulate that process. How do we do that? The work sessions is one of the areas that we can do that, and involvement with different areas of the town. Different department heads get together during the work sessions and focus in it. Public input can be, you know, useful at that point to set those priorities. What does the public want? At some point, somebody has to decide, or collectively as a group, and I think that was given to us, that responsibility to decide which ones should be the most important. We'll decide that based on public input, what department needs are, which really the most important issue. If it's, you know, erosion and sediment position, or it's, you know, whatever it is. But the idea is that we all collectively, at that point in time, agree to work on that particular issue. And that's, to me, do we set 10 priorities? Do we set 5? We could set 3, I don't care, as long as we know what we're going after.
And we might even want to do a short term and a long term.
Correct. And there'll be things that are long term. There are things that are projected to, you know, maybe have to be replaced in 20 years. We're not going to deal with that today.
Correct.
But there are things that need to be dealt with today that we should approach today. And now there may be 10 things that need to be done today. Which one do you do? It's just to try to help us organize
I think
ourselves.
that's a great idea, Jim, and I'm thankful that you came up with it. I have my goals, and I didn't even get the memo, but I have my goals, you know, and I'll get them to you so that you can be the keeper of them and somehow formulate them in a list.
Well, share
Somebody
them.
has to be.
What we'll do is share them. We'll collect all those ideas together with every department head submitted. We'll put them into some kind of format. If anybody wants to volunteer to help with that, that would be great.
I think it's a good idea that it gets shared.
Yeah, and then share it, go around,
Have the same goals.
and refine it.
And we could work together on those things. Yeah.
In meetings like this, we should be able to say, okay, these are all the list of priorities that we have, and, you know, which ones, you know, let's get one of those whiteboards or one of those giant pads that you do, and get somebody, you know, kind of brainstorm a little bit and put the ideas, and we could do a consensus on it, and somehow formulate an approach to setting those priorities.
That's the only way we're going to move forward.
Right. And I'm going to try to talk to Whitestone about that, see what kind of input they can provide, an approach. You know, this is not my idea. This is something that businesses do as a proper course of action, an appropriate course of action to run their businesses properly. This town is a business.
Well, I'm on the hot seat Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. Could you give me some pointers? And I think that's good. They're going to meet with each one of us individually to find out where we're coming from.
Right.
So they'll come up with, I would imagine, some objectives as well.
Sure.
And, you know, this isn't uncommon. I'm sure businesses do it. We did it in the National Park Service. You have every department give you their want list, you might call it. And then and actually that was part of my job, was to formulate all of it into one list, and then it was prioritized by the top managers. And it wasn't just, it was discussed just like we're discussing this. And we might have, it might even be a 5-year plan. Some of them are for this fiscal year. Some of the others you know that you don't have funding for, so it may go into the next fiscal year. So this isn't a new concept. It just may be new for us.
And the other thing too is, like we talked about dispatch, that's something that's hot on our plate to deal with. Other things like the erosion sediment. Knowing what's going to take place by setting priorities, knowing what's going to take place down the road, okay, you can plan and budget for things more appropriately. If I turn around and say, like the school system needs $400,000 today, you cringe because you don't know where you're going to get it from. Had we known that 5 years ago, we could have planned for it. You can't always plan for everything, but there are certain things that you know have a life expectancy. You know when it's going to expire, you plan to replace it at the time it expires. It's like what we do in our budgets at home. We know we need a heat pump. This one's going to last for 5 years. I can make it last for 5 years, but after 5 years, I'm going to have to put in a new one. I can plan for that. I have 5 years to plan for it. It's not going to kill me to do that in 5 years, because I'll have to save for it. The same thing with all these different issues and things that we want to do. We'll be able to plan for those things more appropriately. And again, united, all of us together working towards the same goals, the same objectives, we'll be able to achieve them. And you know what? The openness and the sharing of information is critical to this. I think most people have to learn to drop their guards a little bit and to share what they know. You may think it's foolish, but it's not. There is no foolish ideas. Brainstorming, in companies I've worked for, we did brainstorming sessions. Every single idea was recorded. Why? Because that idea that you mentioned or someone else mentioned stimulates someone else to think about something else. If they didn't mention that, that idea would have never came up. So everything that everyone has to say has to be respected and be considered important. An objective or a goal that someone has may seem trivial. You know, if someone in the audience says, well, I think we should have this, the super elaborate parakeet park. You know, I don't think a lot of people would agree with it, but it's something that you would try to put in perspective with the other priorities. And you can't do that until you lay them out. So.
Well, Jim, I think that goes along with the next discussion about dealing with additional work sessions. Those are some of the kind of things that we will accomplish by having an additional session. You know, you're right, we don't have enough time to communicate, and communication is a big deal. We're constricted, or not constricted, we're limited with the FOIA requirements. But sometimes phone calls do change, or one person doesn't get a phone call. I know I'm at the bottom of the feeder list, I'm the new person, but we all don't get the same message.
Right.
And that, maybe if we're all working for the same goal, if our goal is communication, or if our goal is barricading the street, we're all going to work towards it. So I think it's extremely important that we get those goals and get them working. Let's talk about additional sessions.
That all the goals, we're all
What do you think? Is that good?
Yeah.
I'm going to share everything that I get.
Great idea.
Send it to Val, Val will send it to you.
All right, next thing is discussion dealing with additional work sessions. When, how often?
Well, I'm going on record. My counterpart here, the rose between these two thorns, does not agree that we need additional work sessions. Not speaking for you, but I want to speak to you. I think that we do need them for this exact reason. I don't always like to hear what's going on in town on Facebook. I don't like to hear, I don't get on topics, so don't talk about me, I don't care. But some things I find out secondhand. I'll give you a perfect example. What time is our meeting tomorrow?
Yeah, what time is our meeting tomorrow?
Noon.
Is it 12 o'clock?
It's on your agenda at
Nothing
noon.
voted on yet.
Okay,
We
well, I'm
got
ahead of
an
it, okay.
email. It's on the
Well,
agenda.
I would say it's on the agenda as noon.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
so-
on the agenda
And
for 12
we can
o'clock.
change that.
Okay, well, I don't
I'm
want to
just
go
telling you
all
what we
that.
read the email.
Tentatively 12 o'clock.
Okay, whatever time it is. If that had been open for discussion, I would have liked to have been included in that discussion. And I feel, as being the bottom of the food chain, I get a lot of my communication, like I say, off of Facebook or from a colleague, and communication is imperative for this person to learn and serve in the capacity that I've been appointed to. So not only is it going to be a goal of mine, Councilman Jim, it is going to be a necessity, and I think the work session will provide that opportunity. That's all I got to say about that.
Well, if we need additional work sessions, I just say very simply, look how long we've taken tonight. Now, when you want a work session, if we can't do it in half-an-hour segments, then make each session, if we have 4 committees, 4:30, 5:30, 6:30, 7:30. Let's try that first, one day, instead of having something every week. Try the 1 hour first, if we really need an hour. I just cannot imagine public service, safety is going to, unless I talk a lot about, well, get the proper wording from Chief Hawkins, about public safety. I just can't see that I'm going to give you an hour of public safety. I don't know. Then if I don't give you an hour, then Jim can take up more of mine. I just cannot see, once a month to me is enough. If we stretch it out for an hour each time, you're going to have to prove to me that we need more than that. Somebody's got to prove that to me.
Councilman, with all due respect, I don't think you have the right concept of what I'm trying to say, not the council. I don't want a work session where you have an hour to speak. I want a work session where we have an agenda and we follow those guidelines. I think we got away, I don't remember the exact words that Mayor Hand used, ad hoc person, what is it you used?
Point of contact.
Point of contact. You are in fact the point of contact for public safety, but there might be a public safety issue that I see, and I bring it to you, but it might not be within that hour context. It might not hit this little brain of mine in your allotted time. I think our work sessions are to be just that. That's where we get over those knee-jerk reactions and we spit it out, and we, just like Jim said, every idea is important. if I'm in an allotted time in a specific committee, I'm limited. I think we ought to be able to say whatever we want to say, however we want to say it, to whomever we want to say it, and get it done. And I don't want to be limited.
To change that, we would have to change the bylaws at
Right.
that point.
And I'm not on a committee, so it's easy for me to say, all I'm doing is bothering
There are
you
no
and yours.
committees.
Well, whatever you want to call it. What is it called?
Point of contact.
Point of contact. I am nobody's point of contact.
If they have a specific issue they want to get another council member and 2 or 3 citizens to work with, you can form an ad hoc committee, bring it to a work session. I want to put together a committee to look into this because it's in my public safety realm or the budget realm or whatever. But what I was trying to get away from when I recommended changing the bylaws was just what Tommy was talking about. We would come to meetings and the mayor would say, all right, we open the budget committee now. Well, I was the budget committee. There were 2 other people on it, we never talked to each other. And you kind of get the feeling, I've got to fill 30 minutes up, so I'll just talk, and when my 30 minutes is up, then he'll come, Tommy, and say, all right, public safety committee. Well, public safety committee never met. The committees did not meet because there were 3 people on them. You couldn't have a meeting of 3 people without advertising a meeting. If you got 2 of them together, one felt left out, well, why those 2 get together? They're talking about me now. And having the point of contacts and the work sessions, I, for one, don't think we need, 1 a week would almost be overkill. We're going to find out, I think.
Well, that's a good thing. Let us find out.
They'll be short,
But
hopefully.
and everybody doesn't have to come to a work session. That's one thing we brought up.
Well, and that's what we're saying. Those that want to come to it and work as a team, and that's what we keep promoting, is the team. If you don't want to come, you don't have to. If Tommy doesn't want to come, okay. But if we advertise that we're having a work session every week on whatever day, Wednesday at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, at least it gives us the right to have that meeting without it being called an illegal meeting. If I ride by Fat Frida's and I see Jim talking to you, I can't stop, because if I want to discuss something, it's an illegal meeting.
Talking about crab cakes.
No, you're not. I don't even talk about crab cakes with 3 people that's on council, because it's going to be construed as an illegal meeting. Somebody's going to, on topics is going to say, they had an illegal meeting. Those of us that have a lot of work to do, I want a way to meet without having to spend hours on the phone trying to, what's your idea? What's yours? And then I can say, we got a consensus, which is what I did on this, if you don't want to come, don't come. But we can meet and it will be legal. If you advertise it, is that correct? If you advertise it, whatever, once or twice, whatever it is, and say that this is going to be a meeting day.
Do we have to advertise this in the newspaper, or does it just have to be?
No,
put
just
on
be
the town bulletin board?
posted.
If we change it and have a
If you
work session,
change it, you're going to update the bylaws if you change it, because I think your bylaws now say a monthly meeting and a work session. I don't have a copy of it. I'll check. I'll check.
I think they do, because the dates are good.
Right. And then you do a resolution to set the meeting dates. As far as advertising, it just has to be posted. We don't have to do paid advertising.
post it how many days in advance?
3 business days in advance. But if you're going to set them up, let's say for a month, if that's what you want to do, you advertise it and do your resolution, that takes care of that. It's already published.
And I know Gary Sieber is not interested in doing it. I don't think. I think that's what he told me. But there are some of us that do need to do it.
And that will also, Wanda, alleviate the communication problem. I understand some people were asked about meeting tomorrow in a work session. I got the agenda, and that's how I found out about it. I want us to be transparent. I want to know not everything you know or not everything Mary Ann knows, but I want to open up that communication so that Mike doesn't have to pick up the phone and call me and say, did you see the town manager run that red light? I want to be, I want to be transparent, and I want to be able to communicate with you, Mr. Mayor, but not by telephone, or because I heard something from Jim because he had a chance to talk to you, or vice versa. I want the opportunity for us to meet and be open. And
I absolutely agree with you, but the communication's not going to be any better if half of us don't come to the meeting.
You know,
It's still not gonna
unless we
get better.
schedule a meeting for every 10 minutes, 24 hours a day, somebody's gonna hear something and, oh my God, why wasn't I told about that?
well, Mr. Mayor, I disagree.
Never get to that
No,
point.
I disagree with you. I think that there are important issues that need to be discussed. And I could bring them up right now, but I think if we have these work sessions in the future, they'll be avoided.
I agree there's a lack of communication. It could be better.
Well,
We're working really hard at it, but we need to improve.
just to look back in the past, previous councils met twice a month, 24 times a year. Again, I don't want to say anything negative about them, but not a whole lot was accomplished during that time. This council wants to move forward. I think those of us that are interested in spending the time should be free to do that. If I want to put in 80 hours a week, that should be my prerogative. Anybody else wants to join me, that's their prerogative. If I want to be engaged to a certain depth, that should be my prerogative. Each of us has to respect each of us for our positions. I respect if you don't want to do, that's fine. Respect the amount of time that I want to put in and allow me to function the way I see fit. To establish the meetings gives us an opportunity to meet more often. Whether you take advantage of it is your own decision. If you're engaged with certain issues, you may want to be there. If you're not engaged with certain issues, you may not want to be there. Once we get the show on the road and we have a map set in place that we're going to follow to work as a team together, it's going to work as clockwork. It's not going to, you're not going to require the meetings that you have now. But initially, it's going to require some time and effort to organize this stuff. I don't see any other way to do it.
And by having these meetings, in no way would we be micromanaging. But like you said, when we have everything in place, things are going to roll. Things are going to know. We're going to know what policies are in place and what direction we're moving in. Right now, I'll be very honest, we have 7 people going in 7 different directions.
We have, how many people work for this town?
Yeah, exactly.
On a good
And they're
day.
all going in separate directions.
Exactly.
To me, just try to organize this. I don't intend to be, on this council forever. I like to relax and retire and be out fishing and doing all that kind of good stuff, hanging around with my grandkids, watching them play, whatever, go on a golf cart. The idea for us, to me, is to put systems in place so that this town is organized to function efficiently and in an acceptable manner to the taxpayer. And this council sets priorities along with the town and everybody in it, and we all act as a team. Once those mechanisms are put in place, it's like pushing something downhill. It should go. The only thing you need is someone to steer. It's not an easy task. There's a lot of things that need to be looked into, a lot of things that need to be restructured. Initially, we have to spend that time. We have to get involved. We're all kind of walking around visiting other locations to get a more in-depth background so that we can have first-hand information. When someone asks us a question, we'll have an idea. We'll have a clue. I'm not going to be the expert over wastewater treatment. Okay, but I'll know who the expert is. I'll know when the manager has an issue, I know I can talk to her about something, or Joan, or Rob, or Gary, for that matter. We need to learn and become more intimate with the process to do the best job that we can. Good information will allow us to exercise good judgment. Meeting more will provide more information. I can't see where that could be bad. Again, I respect everybody's position, how much time they're willing to put into this process. I'm not expecting anybody to do what I do, and I hope they don't expect me to do what they do. It should be something that we should be able to exercise what we feel is appropriate. And again, what you want to put into the situation is what you want to put into it. Allowing the rest of the group to proceed and have meetings, no one should be hindering that process.
May I ask a procedural question? In all the meetings, you have to have certain staff members, you have to have tape recordings and that sort of thing. With these extra work sessions, what is going to be involved? What staff members will have to attend and things like that? Like you're continuing this to tomorrow at noon. So is like Val and Joan going to have to be at all these meetings? Are they going to have to be taped and stuff like that?
We don't go to Annie.
Let me clarify something. The recess, and when we talked about this, when I talked about it initially with the town attorney, I talked to a couple of the council members I could get a hold of, and the issue became that at the last meeting, we agreed we were going to get together with the town manager and discuss goals and objectives and job performance. And I felt like the full council should be there. We knew that Councilman Seaver would not be back until late tonight. I didn't know Jim wasn't going to be here tonight, and I'm not sure if he's available tomorrow or not.
I think,
Yeah, he sent an
the
email.
email said he would be, yes.
Said he-
So, I put it that we would come up with a time while we were here, but in the meantime, I don't know if Andrea, that was the only time she could meet, or?
She can be here at that time or later. She
Okay.
teaches a class tomorrow.
So it doesn't have to be 12. But that was the idea behind that. We wanted the full council here because it's a very important process to come up with expectations and all for the town manager. And we wanted everybody to be able to participate in that. So 12 noon is not carved in stone, just because it's written there. So,
I'll move the clerk this week.
my first thought was somewhere around between maybe 1 or 2 o'clock or so. That way we can get out of here before people go out to do whatever they're going to do on Friday nights.
Well, if you tell me a time, if you agree on a time,
Well, and I don't want to call you to task, Mayor, but if we could go back to the additional work sessions, I don't want to lose that train of thought.
We're not losing it. I just wanted to reiterate what somebody said, why did we have a 12 noon and nobody was told that?
So is it still 12 noon?
No.
Okay.
No?
We're going to decide when it is.
Oh.
How is that going to be communicated?
We're going to sit right here, and the only two that aren't here, I don't
Oh,
know.
I
To
like
speak-
12 noon.
To speak to Linda, I think it's imperative that the town manager be here, and I think it's important that Joan be here. My personal opinion is these meetings aren't going to go on forever. They might be quick, they might be long. So until we find out what they're going to be, I think that as many department heads that can be here, they know their work schedule. But I don't perceive this going all through the summer. I perceive it personally as maybe through the end of the Whitestone process or through the end of the budget process. That's totally Greek to me. It's going to take a while. So those people being called away from their positions, I don't think that's going to be an all-afternoon thing. I don't perceive it as that. And maybe if we get here and it's just Jim and I could leave. We'll just sit here and go to lunch or whatever. But not everybody's going to be at every meeting. And
If it's just you and me, we could turn up the recorder.
all right.
Anyway, at this point, we need a consensus over to, as town manager said, we'll have to do this by resolution because our work sessions right now were set by resolution. And
Mr. Mayor, when is Whitestone supposed to be finished again? I forgot.
90 days.
90 days? So it's March 1st, March, April, May. Could we do it till June 1st? That would get us through the budget, get it through budget, get it through the Whitestone process, basically. Give us a time.
Right now, what we're doing is we're extending, we're adding to this meeting by having it tomorrow. And so we're creating more time. we can continue to do this. It gives us more time to deal with issues. Right now, unless we do a resolution, I don't think we could have meetings just by advertising,
Well,
a special meeting.
Are you saying, just for clarification, are you saying that if we had, say, a work session and the council felt like there were several things on the plate, you will continue meeting recess instead of adjourning? You
Right.
need to have a meeting so it would not be.
The issue you get into there is you're scheduling a meeting, you're recessing a meeting, and I've been told if it's reasonable, like we're gonna recess today and reconvene sometime tomorrow. We couldn't say we're gonna recess today and reconvene next Thursday, and then recess that one and reconvene the following Thursday. Because then you get into, you're really creating new meetings. You're not recessing because
seem to be
of a
circumventing
time
it.
issue or whatever.
You know, I'm for saying what you're gonna do. You know, don't plan to recess and then go to a second session the next day. We've said, for the record, that some of us believe we need more meetings. We're putting a lot of time in, and I think that's what we need to address. I am for a meeting, period. If we do a resolution at council meeting, a meeting per week for a period of time that I don't know how long it will be. I would like to have gotten through some of the major issues before summer. I want some time of my own for summer. Right now, I'm not getting much of that. But I'm dedicated to what I'm doing. And there are a number of other people that are doing the same thing. So if we can simplify it by announcing that we're going to meet, and hopefully it won't last as long as this meeting, because I'm getting really tired. And I'm starting to get a little bit short, if you noticed. But let's just decide. I'm for a meeting. If someone else doesn't want to come, just like Jim said, that's their prerogative.
Why don't we do this?
Every Thursday?
If we're gonna recess until tomorrow anyway,
No, not on Thursdays.
And
On Tuesdays.
I don't,
why don't the five of us think about this, and we'll bring it back up tomorrow when the full council is here to see what other people's feelings are. I've had several citizens contact me and say the town used to periodically have a Saturday meeting where people that work and can't make it to every meeting we decide we want to hold.
I don't disagree with that, Mr. Mayor, but I do question, and this is just throwing it out there, why are we recessing till tomorrow? Because it's 7:15 now.
No, because we don't have a full council here, and we have some issues that we need to
Okay,
get resolved
well,
tomorrow.
I understand, but the issues are the evaluation of our town manager or formulation of the evaluation process. I just want to be clear.
To discuss the job performance and evaluation process of the town manager.
The expectations.
Expectations.
Okay, I just want to be clear, and I think a full council would do that. Okay, I just thought we could wrap it up tonight if it was to talk about how we're going to go about evaluating, but I didn't understand that.
Not what it is. It's actually, well, it's to talk about it, but to start putting together something.
Okay.
And we decided that it would be best if the entire council, instead of just five of us deciding and two others saying, well, I was left totally out of that. But does anybody else disagree with recessing until?
I didn't say I disagree. No, I didn't say I disagreed with it. I didn't say I disagreed with it. What I wondered is what made you feel the need. So now I understand. I think that's very appropriate.
All right, we have one vote for noon. I vote for any time.
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock.
Noon. You're
Noon and 2 o'clock.
I'm open, flexible.
The reason why I don't feel like I don't know how long we're gonna be. I'm a diabetic, so I have to eat. And I don't feel like eating in front of these people, I'll be embarrassed by that. So I feel like by allowing me to eat and coming in at 2 o'clock, it's not a whole lot to ask for. I'm just speaking for myself.
And
But
that's
if
a
you
good
want me to
reason.
be here, I'll be here. But if I fall on the ground, Just get a little sugar in me, okay? No problem.
I'm very familiar, I'll keep some or juice.
Thank you.
Not doing CPR.
No, but is 1 o'clock better for you? That you had your lunch and?
1 or 2, it's no problem at all, but not 12.
Well, I'm afraid 2 o'clock's gonna lead into another 7 o'clock, ending 7:30. I would like to have a life.
Set a limit.
Okay, why don't we
But you
do
chose
this?
to be a town councilman, so come on now. You want to have all these meetings once a week,
I
come
want a
on.
meeting during the day at a reasonable time so we
Yeah,
get
but
done.
then we got Jim to worry about. I mean, we got Jim, not
Tim.
Tim. We got Tim to
That's
worry about
not-
because of his work.
He will make some of them, he's
I
already
know,
said, but it won't be all.
But he's gonna miss, right. And we need to kind of work, we should have to, but.
Let's try to be reasonable about it, okay? We
I
said
think
12,
we
we
started
said
2, we'll
1.
get
One
back
is
to
fine, one is fine.
One is a fine.
That's a
Linda?
compromise.
I don't care.
Okay.
I'm just,
Don't be wishy-washy.
I'm not being wishy-washy. I'm telling you, I'm upset by the fact that we're even having a recess. And I didn't know why, but now I got that from the mayor. I need to be. Order in the court. I need to know what's going on. If it's 12, 1, 4, 5, 6, I don't care.
1 or 2.
1:30.
Thank you, sir.
1 o'clock.
And why are we doing
We got
in
one
the afternoon
1
as
o'clock,
opposed to in the
1:30,
morning?
one, either one
Who
or
are
two.
we accommodating by noon or 1 o'clock? Why not 10
I'm not a
o'clock?
morning person.
I was gonna say your press.
Don't say that, then they are gonna meet in the morning.
You know, I just, where did we come up with a noon instead of 10 o'clock? All right,
Yeah, let's get something.
Let's agree.
Let's get it done.
1 o'clock.
that's fine.
1
1
o'clock.
o'clock.
One.
1
Be
o'clock.
there.
1.
I'd like to meet at 6 in the morning.
Me too, Mike, come on, let's
I'm
go.
gonna beat you both.
Listen,
I won't be.
have it at 6, you won't see me, and you guys can go on your merry way.
We can't even agree on a time for a meeting tomorrow.
Sure we
How are we gonna come on work
It's
session?
because we didn't hear
That's the
someone
hard
retired
part.
now.
That's the hard part.
But we haven't finished the discussion of the work sessions. Are we gonna have them?
Everybody think about what they think we should do, what we should have, we come back tomorrow, when we got 2 other council members that we're
That's reasonable.
committing
That's
something.
reasonable. Continue.
We're gonna have to do a resolution anyway to pull this off, because we have to post it every week, a new sign saying we're having another meeting this week. So,
Who does the signs?
Cindy does in the rain, in the wind.
Okay.
so I hear a motion to recess until 1 o'clock tomorrow.
So moved.
It just works when it wants to.
All in favor?
Aye.